Okay. Good afternoon. Today is March the 8th. Just going to drop the link here in the Discord real quick and then get started. Why is this not coming up? Oh, there we go. Share. Okay. Whoops. This is live. Yeah, perfect. And do something like that. All right. So hopefully everybody had a good weekend. And I'll start with Bitcoin. We'll go through just a VWAP perspective first, and then we'll kind of work our way down from there. Why is this so laggy? Okay. So yearly VWAP, this may become a bit more of a more important reference going forward, just being that, recent developments and whatnot. So I mean, I've kind of nailed this home countless times now, but obviously shifted back inside of 2024 value, right? We tagged 2024 VWAP, kind of deviated a little bit. We started to build up multiple weeks of value. We failed above highs last week. Now we're back inside of that multi-week composite. So if we continue to break down, 2024 val does seem like an obvious target towards 50K. Okay, so something going forward. Besides that, yearly VWAP and quarterly VWAP are exactly the same right now, so that's why I'm not discussing much there. So quarterly value. So this can remain something that's going to be important going forward, I think. Um, I would say this is the more longer term bullish scenario for where Bitcoin's actually headed, being that we're obviously in a downtrending market, right? So it takes a long time for momentum to actually shift. So I don't think this is the bottom, to be honest with you. Of course, I could be wrong, but um, so I mean, with quarterly value, right, we failed to shift back inside multiple times. Upon the kind of higher low we put in last week, that was obviously the push we had there, and that was the best interaction we saw with quarterly value. More recent developments, right, like last week's high, and then the breakdown from there, shift back inside of the composite, um, starts to make me think that it's not going to be this interaction here is not going to be right here specifically this higher low. This isn't going to be the push up, right? Chloe, what are you doing? Sorry. I don't think this can be the push up. Now, the bullish scenario is that, maybe I mean, structurally you can't see the composite, but we kind of have an imbalance towards down here. So maybe we clean up these lows and we remain kind of, making another retest of um, quarterly val here, right? And then we see the move up. Now, I don't really think that quarterly VWAP is going to be the upside target. I would think that we just break down. Respect for Chloe in the chat. Chloe. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going to be it. I mean, more recent developments point to the downside, so I don't think that this is going to be the case where we actually trade up towards 76K, to be honest with you. So, not putting a lot of emphasis on that. But that would be the case for quarterly value. So, we multiple different attempts trying to break inside it over the course of 4 or 5 weeks. Finally broke inside, and now we're starting to shift bearish, it looks like. So, pretty bearish there in quarterly value. As for monthly, my previous month value area high, we had a failed auction above that level, which I talked about last week and got in there short. Um, so failed auction above there. We kind of shift back inside, holds as resistance upon breaking down, and then we are expecting traversal towards 64K now, maybe even lower, right? So previous month value high obviously was significant. We failed above there, so more often than not, when price breaks from value, it should lead to continuous imbalance, which it did, and then it found some resistance, kind of just started to range, which is more or less just weakness, and then you can see we started to break down, and that was that. So again, now expecting traversal. As for developing month, again, shifted back inside. I've already traversed that. And it looks like we're about to go imbalance down on developing month value. So again, previous month value is going to be the only thing to work with there, but certainly bearish against monthly value. Weekly, go to a bit higher time frame here. So weekly, pretty much the same thing. So here was the high we put in last week. I think I shorted around here. And then we had weekly value area high. I think monthly value area high. And I think previous day VWAP was here. This was kind of a little bounce we had into a lower high, right? And then we shifted back inside again, traversal. And, it looks like we've shifted back inside a previous week value here too. So, I mean, there's your traversal value, kind of a bit of a messier retest there earlier today. And right now, you'd expect to move all the way down to previous week val, which is where I'm potentially looking for a bit of a counter trend bounce to try and maybe play mean reversion or something like that. So that's that. Previous week VWAP is also there. So, I mean, very likely there's going to be probably a little bounce around there too. But more or less pretty bearish against all VWAPs. I mean, like I said, the bull case would be that, we sweep lows or something like that and we kind of just have a failed shift lower and then kind of remain inside of quarterly value and then maybe see a move up. But it doesn't point to that. But that would be the bullish scenario, I would say. Weekly, right? Traverse value, imbalance down, shifted back inside of previous week value, and then pretty much exactly the same thing on monthly. Expecting traversal of monthly or previous month value and attempting to go imbalance down on developing months. So pretty bearish against most VWAPs here, basically except for quarterly, but certainly looks like it's going to break down, in my opinion. Talk about, say, rolling VWAP here, and then we're going to go down the list. Rolling VWAP, of course, 90-day, 365, not going to be important right now. As for the 7-day and 30-day, obviously, again, we failed. We shifted back inside. We're now back under the 7-day, and the 30-day is starting to kind of point down. So, again, that would be more kind of confluence for downside. And, of course, we're also under that. We kind of held it, which, I mean, rolling VWAPs aren't really a trade location on their own. They're not any kind of confluence, and more just kind of a momentum read. But again, we started to break down, and 30-day rolling is starting to point down here, curl down, and it held on this retest here. So it certainly looks like it's going to break down. So I mean, really, kind of leaning bearish with the rolling VWAPs here, which is they're not anything major, but nonetheless, we'll be leaning bearish there. So I mean, talk about composite structure here. You could chop this up however you decide to. I mean, just go to TPO here and do it this way. I'll talk about weekly first, I guess. It just depends how you decide to do this. I mean, let's reset these. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of overlapping value. Of course, this is where the balance actually persists, right? This is a pretty messy distribution, being that we just trended downwards. And then obviously this is a balanced day, week, balanced week. This is pretty balanced too. So depending on whether you form a 4-week or a 5-week composite, the levels I think are a little different. Let's just see. Oops, I'll have to remerge this. TradingView TPO sucks. So if we get 4 here, see what it looks like. Yeah, so your time value area high is going to be around 69. Volume either way is around 70, which I think is the better level. I mean, even just looking at it, right, prices likes this level more in my opinion. So 70K is what I'm leaning on more. And then of course, if you decide to merge it here, which I'll talk about, kind of the emphasis on this, if you merge all 5 weeks, then it's closer to approaching 71K, and val is, again, it's the same. It's right around 65, 2 or 3 or whatever. It doesn't really matter. So it just depends how you decide to merge that. Being that last week we traded outside of it, I would probably merge all 5 of them, in my opinion, like this. So ideally, you only want to merge where balance still persists. So in my opinion, you probably would merge this one until we got this one here where we started to break above, right, into this area. And, I would probably merge all 5 now. So that's my opinion. You can do whatever you like, but 5 weeks of overlapping value. I guess we can look at dailies here and just see if there's any major anomalies worth looking at. I think there's a couple. When it comes to daily developments, I do have well, I have a couple shorts going right now. I have a kind of a messy 7-day profile here. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So these days here, I merged into kind of a messy composite. The distribution's okay. That's what this 7-day composite is. So we kind of shifted back inside right around where actually the POC's migrated higher. It used to be here, but got it on a retest here on Friday afternoon. So I've just kind of been holding that with lower risk. And that's that. Actually, no, you can't merge those. Never mind. So nothing really to merge here. There's no real developments of any daily profiles that I'd like to merge here. There's nothing going on there. Do have a single print up here, which is worth noting. So going into this week, there's a couple of areas I'd like to trade from, specifically on the short side. That's going to be one of them. Other anomalies include poor lows here, and then you kind of have this imbalance down here. I think it's 3-4 hour time, or sorry, time frame, yeah. But I mean, just go back here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, naked point of control up here. I don't think we make it that high. I would say we go for this imbalance if we do see this move up, which I'll touch on. But again, naked point of control up here. I'm not really going to even mention that. Single print here, I'm going to mention because I think it's important. And then you have poor lows down here. As for anything else, I don't think anything else is worth digging into. So, see where we sit here now. I mean, if we talk about a recap here, right? I mean, like we rallied kind of from the whole Iran and invasion headlines from I think here, right? That was the first thing, and then we rallied since there. So, we rallied from those lows up to previous month value area high. And one thing I want to touch on here was the vast majority of this move was all fresh position. This was all new longs opening. So I can probably pull that up. This will probably work. Yeah, so here you can see. Right, pretty much this entire move, more or less. I mean, the whole move, but I mean, especially here, right, as we started to break from value all the way up to previous month value area high, it's all fresh positions. It's all an increase in open interest, right, with the vast majority of it being positive delta. So that's all new longs opening. So, I mean, I think I mentioned that last week that, if we do start to break down, there's a lot of new positions that can be flushed out and fuel the move down. So that's basically what, we've kind of had here. Um, Continuing on from there. Yeah, so all of those longs more or less got flushed. I mean, they have at this point, obviously, but that was kind of what helped fuel the move down. Um, and I mean, we're kind of just diddling around monthly val right now. I mean, it doesn't look good structurally. There's been a couple little pops. There's been a lot of new longs around here that have been flushed out a couple times over the weekend. I mean, you can see here, here, probably here, here. So any of those, but I'm short from up here. Um, like I said, there's a couple imbalances to work with. So I mean, going forward right now, going into this week, I don't think, like I said, the bullish argument is that we trade up to here. I don't see, as it sits right now, any reason we would do that. Of course, we would more or less have to hold quarterly value. So like I said, we had a good interaction last week before we actually saw the push up, but either way, that needs to hold. So whether we deviated a bit and then held it, that would be some kind of bullish scenario. But even at that point, I wouldn't be totally sold, but that would be the bullish argument. But I would say going into this week, I'm bearish. I would say I'm bearish, and as it currently sits shorter term, I'm more neutral but leaning bearish. Like I would take longs, and I'll show you where they would be more counter trade in my opinion, and there's short side take with higher risk. So as it sits for shorts right now, so I mean, again, we've shifted back inside. We've essentially flipped the point of control here, as well as shifted back inside of this 7-day profile. Pretty much imbalanced down on all VWAPs, like I said. So again, I'm expecting traversal. So, but again, we're now technically, could become rotational. So again, it just comes down to fading the extremes of value. So, again, single print up here, value area high, kind of I think there's a kind of a demand zone here. All right, anywhere around there makes sense to short. Right, so if we get a larger return pullback into here, that's a great area to try and position for a swing short, in my opinion. Right, and obvious downside targets remain as, again, 65K, right? Composite lows, the 8-month low, February's low, right? And then there's a naked quarterly val that I have down here as well, and the 2024 val, which I think is 50K. It's not on my screen. I don't know why. Where's quarterly? So this quarterly val, this quarterly val right here, I assume this naked quarterly val will produce some kind of a bounce. It's a good downside target. And then, of course, 2024 val is 50K, 50.6. So I forgot to mark that, but either way, that's my more broad downside target. And Yeah, so like I said, fading on the extremes, so we get a larger return pullback there. That would make sense to short. I also think that this massive imbalance up here in weekly monthly value area high, if monthly value area high or monthly val more or less is able to kind of get reclaimed here, and we don't hold here, I think that a possible fake out above here into this imbalance, right, would make sense to also try and swing short. So if we get that, that's another move I would like to play down. And I think if that's given the same way this short was given, it's extremely safe, and that is safe. We could potentially ride that much lower. As for longs right now, I only see one potential play, and I had the same thing I think last week before we started to push, and it would be somewhere around here, previous week val. So kind of I guess it depends how you decide to break this down, but you kind of have this demand zone or whatever, and sort of kind of an imbalance down here. So I think if there's a good flush down into right around 64, I would say probably try and play that as a counter trend bounce, and then trade that back up to the composite lows, and then if we shift back inside, maybe a mean reversion kind of play, something like that. But it would be like a B minus C risk kind of trade. It wouldn't be anything with major size. So I yeah, I don't think that. I think again we could continue to build up value here longer. Of course, we could. I mean, we could, like I said, we could become rotational here, and it just comes down to fading the extremes. So don't know how long it'll be. Of course, there's an imminent, could be an imminent breakdown even lower. But the truth of the matter is, this is already a good distribution. I don't know if we break down in the near term, or it's going to take a while. Don't know. Of course, there's ways to get a read on that, right, with shorter term references and things like that, of course, which is what I look at day to day. But in short, you don't know when it's going to break down. So, as for kind of your lines in the sand, I guess you could say, so bullish line in the sand, I would say, is previous month val, previous week val, I guess I could say. So, if we convincingly lose this, if we don't see that bounce there, I don't know why I did that. We don't see that bounce there, sorry. Um, I have no interest in longing as it currently sits. I just don't see how that's going to be the scenario, right? Given failure above here, shift back inside, bearish or imbalance down essentially against all VWAPs at that point, back under a 30-day and 7-day rolling VWAP. I just don't see how that's going to be the case. So that's going to be my line in the sand to be looking for longs right now. I think if we lose that, I have no interest in trying to long anything. Bearish line in the sand, I would say, is previous month value area high, monthly value area high kind of area. So, like I said, if we kind of probe into this, I mean, there's a naked point of control or the imbalance. So, if we get that move up there, right, and anywhere around here holds, that's fine. If we get above here, then of course, like I said, the bullish scenario would be that we held quarterly value and we're probably going to 76, maybe higher. But 76 is the next upside target. What else can I touch on here? One thing I touched on, I mentioned in my channel on Friday. I think I touched on it at the beginning of the stream too, just briefly. But when you break from value like this, it should lead to just continuous trend, which it did up until this point, and then it started to range. And more often than not, when that happens, right, its weakness reverts back into value, and it'll break down, or at least traverse value. This specific scenario has happened multiple times on Bitcoin, where this has happened, and then it's actually led to a new low. So we can look here. This was I think 3-week profile or something like that. Right, we had a pretty convincing break here, another big impulse, kind of probed into this imbalance, which is exactly what we did here, right? Last week, exactly the same thing. And then started to just build out range over the weekend, right? Big flush, and then, it led to new lows. And then we just continued to dump. Similarly, same thing here around that yearly VWAP or previous year VWAP, 365-day rolling VWAP kind of level around November. Exactly the same thing happened, right? We had a break, really just a failed auction, started to range, shifted back inside, messy retest, breakdown, new lows. And I mean, the list goes on. I'm sure I don't have any of this even marked anymore, but I'm sure, I mean, you could break this down and see more or less the same thing. It looks like the same thing here, right? Range, failed auction range, new lows. Kind of the same thing above this high too. And then that flush there as well. So as it currently sits, yeah, I the only bullish scenario I can see right now is quarterly value more or less holding a support. That doesn't happen, then I think it's an imminent breakdown to, I mean, 60K is the next obvious target, right? We already filled in the wick with these lows. February low and 60K seems obvious. 56K, another good target, and then I'll put that in. There's 50,600. I don't know why it's not on my chart. 2024 val, and that's that. So I'll do a full write-up and everything in my channel, as I always do for the week. Solana was one I was watching as well, which I don't think it's going to give us. Quarterly val, previous week val. I mean, yeah, very, very similar to Bitcoin. Of course, it's breaking down more. This looks less favorable to try and long from, in my opinion, than Bitcoin does. But same thing with Solana, right? A failure above the highs. Right, took out these highs, didn't really go into the imbalance here, but again, failure, previous month value high, retest, breakdown. So really again, same thing, big imbalance here, composite high, lots of VWAP overlap. So any retest into 87 or 88, more or less, I think should be shorted. Ethereum about the same, right? Big imbalance. I think Ethereum's going to roll over and die. I don't even think you'd get that on Ethereum. Ethereum was actually a really nice short. It did make it to the imbalance, cleaned up multiple sets of highs, and then we shifted back inside. Compression on top of Val, and then big flush. So I think Ethereum, honestly, is if it does bounce, it's more likely to. I don't think it. Actually, let me see here. ETH BTC, it looks like shit. Sol ETH, Sol BTC. So yeah, I mean we've tagged that. So yeah, I think if Solana gets up to composite highs, probably a short. I think it's less likely Ethereum even gets close to there unless something changes. I think Ethereum is more likely that probably comes up to this thin area up here. Maybe the single print. I'm gonna mark that off. And like I said, maybe these highs. So kind of a messy range there. So maybe we probe into here or this overlap. I think if it's given, it's worth a short. So anywhere here, anywhere from 2023 to 2050 or so, if that's given. But I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen. Anybody want me to chart anything else? Gold looks rather constructive, I would say. The val, quarterly val, that was a good short I marked last week. I got taken out of break even, I think, and then it broke down, but retest, so now it's against back rotational in here, so maybe a subsequent retest here to try and play long. This also looks like it's going to break down. I have Zuki coin. No, I'm not allowed to chart that, man. I got banned from that. Yeah, and then there's a multi-week here as well. I'm not going to chart all this, but it certainly looks like it's going to roll over and die here, right? So this being bearish, oil being bullish, that could kind of be the start of everything starting to roll over and die, in my opinion. And so we got a kind of a retest of Val there, and then flushed, just sitting at kind of two lows here. I think it's dead. If it immediately dies here soon, I don't know, but it looks bad to me. This has already been filled in, so next obvious target to the downside would be 23.8 or so, 23.800. So if we get down to here, that's where I assume that goes. Bitcoin. See where this is at. I mean, these lows look horrible. There's decent depth on the bid here, so maybe we do hold this low. My stops are at break even after this retest, so I don't really care. And then I think it's this one. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I guess unless somebody wants me to chart something else. Made this 22 minutes. That's not too bad. But again, just trading around the extremes of value makes complete sense here. Trend would be bearish in my opinion. So, being that I wouldn't take this with super high risk. Anything around here would be good risk. Anything around here I think is worth taking a good stab at too. Um, and that's all I can see right now. I already took the kind of messy return pullback into the 7-day here. All right, so hopefully we continue to break down, take a counter trend long here, and hedge out the shorts and just kind of see what happens. Drink my beer. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it, guys. I'll do a write up in the cord,